the Mithraeum, same as what guys from Playmin do, we are identifying ourselves as a 4X MMO. We have a live version of the game, so it's the demo stage. The tournament is going to be a bit later. However, you can come in and take a look at two environments, dev and stage, right away. So there are, basically links are there. Dev is running at the higher pace, so X1000. Stage is runs at 1x1, so something that some of you might be familiar from the MMOs, where you kind of have the entire experience at the higher pace to take a look. You will need a bit of XDAI, so yeah. Anyhow, let's proceed. I don't know how many of you have heard of our previous talk on the autonomous conference. So I'm going to be just referencing to some of the main topics. Basically, we believe that financialization is inevitable, meaning that whatever you do on-chain costs you money. Therefore, people are going to be you cannot just break the bubble and tell them that, okay, you pay for the actions, but you gain no reward from it. But there is a problem because reward has to come from something. Therefore, people are usually, in our current system, they are purchasing the entry ticket. So we kind of think of it as a zero-sum game where the chain practically takes a role as something of a host of the tournament in poker, basically taking the fee as a transaction. Therefore, it's not necessarily even a zero-sum, a negative sum, some would say. Therefore, we kind of look to pick the cheapest solution so that the casino would take less from the reward that players are gaining for themselves. We are now hosted on Gnosis. One of the ideas also that we are following is that game design, especially game economy, has to be as the core of any kind of a gameplay that can be provided on the blockchain. This is something that Web 2 products can ignore because they can change things on the go, etc., etc. But if players would know that we can change things on the go and game is financialized, imagine you play in a poker game and rules are now different, right? So mid-tournament. Therefore, immutability is the key. It's one of other topics. Yes, so what happens with the game economy? Players initially have this barrier of the UX, of which it was mentioned here before. Once they get through this, they have a barrier of game design sometimes, but once they get through that, they get to the game economy. So the most experienced players in hyper-financialized games are facing the game economy. Therefore, what happens at that point, if game economy is unstable and however connected to the real world, they're going to abuse it and get all the reward that can be taken out of it, right? So if they have no challenges, nothing else to do, no competition, they will be just monetizing their efforts in the quickest way possible. Those players we call SMURFS. So that's usually those who have benefits over the newcomers. Sometimes they have automatizations, sometimes they tend to use just the experience of the game that they gained previously. And they prevent newcomers to come, basically, to try the game out. That's one of the issues that we are facing. I don't know how many teams right now considering what to do with the issue, but I believe a lot of them will actually face the same kind of a problem. It's not necessarily that we have a solution. We are working towards it. We're trying. We're doing launching tournaments just to test out the game designs, the new features that we add. Therefore, sometimes we take approaches that might not necessarily benefit one of the parties, but we are trying to mostly keep smooths and newcomers at the same position. What they do, they don't want to see anyone who can potentially cause a risk to the formation that they already have. Basically, in our game, you purchase a settlement produces resources, etc., etc. But then, the moment comes when everyone has to define who's the biggest boss within the tournament. People start to engage into military fights, And if you know that this is about to happen, you don't want anyone to give away your secrets, your basically plans, your strategies. So you don't want to have a newcomer amongst your kind of a guild or community. And because spies, because things, because betrayals, we've seen like guilds being bribed by exactly like someone who you would not suppose to see bribing people from the blockchain. We invited no coiners. They figure out how much scholars are getting paid. They bribed some scholars. Scholars betrayed the guild. Like, big drama. We like it. You know, as developers, we enjoy it. We believe that drama is going to be one of the way to drive game into success. Basically, the more drama is caused, the more information is going to be, you know, distributed amongst the masses. So, SMURFS, if you find a solution, if you think of something that we are not already using to prevent the issue, please let us know. Let's discuss. Let's build together. Yeah, so I've mentioned that when player does not have some competition or something to do, he starts to abuse the economy and get basically the monetization of the progress he already made or the efforts that he's about to put. This is an interesting topic. We are still in discussions internally. We want teams to collaborate and build frontier worlds. It's a term that not necessarily going to be the same after a couple of iterations, but what it is. It's an external game loop that can be attached to the game, within which teams can compete. Teams, players, guilds, whoever, can compete outside of the game. Frontier worlds, in my opinion, can exist in between different on-chain games. So, for instance, once again, guys, from Playmint, you have Siege, you have fights. If, let's say, a player would want to have those fights more graphically enriched or more complex, or maybe within a different kind of environment, they could just use like certain probably pre-built feature of import-export and provide whatever data needed to the frontier world to create like an environment in which a fight could be handled. Something similar, if you guys have played a lot of Forex, there is in games such as Total War in a multiplayer mode. Basically, people have like certain amount of points. They spend the points to hire the army. So without the entire campaign in thing, they just purchase the army, gambling on like what the army is going to be purchased by the opponent. Therefore, in the clash, they have like less of a micromanagement, more of a tactical views. That's just one of the examples. I do believe that frontier worlds can be built on top of the economy. Practically, if the resources are being produced by any entity and are not yet harvested or delivered to the wallet, they are in the state which can be gamified and loop can be created. Yeah, so there is that. If you have opinions over it, if you want to have a collaboration with us, if you want to build something like that, let's be in talks. We kind of open to suggestions. We have our own ideas. I do believe that frontier worlds, that monetization and features as such are supposed to bring Web3 to the point where Web2 basically is not standing all that much, not standing as good as Web3. So yeah, if we are to compare it to something from Web2, I would say that, yeah, we have to provide some uniqueness, something that might not necessarily be encouraged in Web2, but there is a demand for it. For instance, EVE Online, for instance, Final Fantasy XIV, they have like things running that are super close to autonomous worlds, in my opinion, because, well, people basically take a look at it and they sometimes provide a social kind of environments to build communities within the games, to monetize features that not necessarily need to be monetized. It's at the pace where, for instance, in Final Fantasy, it's past endgame even. People tend to hire others to just decorate the houses that they build to make nightclubs within the games, which like brings no benefit, but there is reward provided even in real money for that kind of activity that they do. So if we are to take a look at it, incentivization of monetary reward is not necessarily what Web2 games are doing, and definitely something that we should double down on, in my belief. That, yeah, hiring someone to do like an activity within game for you is a cool feature. I do believe this is going to be like interesting for a lot of players who spend their in some amount of time in MMOs, at least some amount. So you know kind of that it like brings you to the state of flow sometimes, which was mentioned also before. And yeah, so there is that. If we are to build frontier worlds and connect different autonomous worlds, we will be able to build autonomous worlds easier, sometimes using those games loops, not necessarily and as an external part of the game, but maybe even as an internal. Therefore, not building a military mechanics, or maybe not bringing complexity otherwise necessary to the economy. So simplification of the processes in that regard would also make sense for those who are yet to build something, or considering that maybe, yeah, they want to try out the hypothesis. Yeah. So yeah, I heard a lot of like talks about how there can be a game that is not necessarily fully on chain and has like some sort of a co-op modes or single player type of games. In my opinion, motivation has to be considered. Somebody has to build the autonomous world, the frontier world. So therefore, you kind of have to bring the idea to the person that he built it for some reason, right? Also, which is even more importantly, you have to bring the idea to the participants that they're participating in this kind of a outside game loop for some reason. One of the ways that I see it right now is either to provide the motivation to gamble to get a better result that otherwise would be possible to get within certain limit, or the reputation risks. So practically, certain events happening in the game can be marked as processed by certain frontier world. Therefore, guilds and players can be considering the event that happened with respect, maybe, with reputation benefit for the guild, and therefore it might be easier for those who are familiar with the game loops that are used outside of the game to join that particular guild. So yeah, this is just two ideas that I've came up to with myself. But yeah, if everyone like going to be considering building something like that, let me know. I would be happy to nudge. That'll be it in terms of my talk. Maybe if you have questions.